Thank you. Thanks, Eric. And it was great to meet some of you today and realize that people from different industries, banking, retail, real estate, have the same struggles, are thinking about the same things. So it was fantastic to see that we're not alone in the journey. So I joined IAG February 2024, so relatively recently. And I was surprised at the level of automation that the group has achieved. It came from different verticals where it wasn't rare to see organizations with several thousand bots, hundreds of bots, etc. So the level of automation that had been achieved in IAG was significantly lower than that, and I realized that we were at the start of the journey, which is great from the perspective that you get to start that journey in this day and age where the tools that we have at our disposal are so much more than they were before a few years ago, right? So just to start, so the journey started well before my time by some brave people from BA. I think we have some of them in here, from British Airways, who started testing RPA, UiPath back then, forced a little bit by the pandemic. The impact the pandemic had on many of your businesses was very, very hard. In an airline is devastating, as you can imagine. So they were using RPA to keep the business afloat against all odds, even against central IT, who were saying, and this is probably this is gonna resonate with you. What is this shadow IT thing going on? Why are they doing these things? So it's grown from them, I promise you, and gradually, slowly moving into credibility from all the different sponsors. And now with a very, very significant program going on, delivering automation across the business. So the journey a little bit, yes, started, relatively late. By this time, many of you have lots of automation done. But started with isolated initiatives, the operating companies finding a home for intelligent automation, and very much focused on RPA, probably not too different to what you have seen. 2023, group-wide realization of potential. And I'll tell you an interesting story. So we are one of the largest European airline groups. We're not the largest, but we are the most profitable one. In 2024, we had a gross margin of 14%, when the second best is struggling to get to 6%. So we must be doing something right. But if you talk to our group CEO, he's not happy. He wants 20%. Now, to get to 20%, you can increase the price. Good luck with that. Let's see if people continue to fly with you, or you can look at cost and become more efficient. And that's very much where what we're trying to do here plays a significant role. So growing automation teams, still mostly RPA, but dipping our toes into intelligent automation. We have a group CEO established in 2024. C2 came into the picture, increasing the number of bots. But what I found the most surprising is the benefit that we were finding on some of those bots. So units 50 is nothing to write home about. The ARB, we measure it as annual recurring benefit. If I deploy something, what is the benefit that it's going to deliver in a year's time? Why do we measure it like that? Because if I release a new automation in December, it's going to be punished because the benefit is going to be quite small in December. So we always analyze it. Very, very significant, because everything we do is high volume. Demand growing exponentially, but still very much opportunistic. What do I mean by that? You can sit back, and there's so much need for automation that opportunities will come at you. But that is not a model that scales well. What scales well, as many of you know, is when you can tackle an entire domain. So when a customer comes to you and says, can you help me automate this task? This is really, really annoying for me. Chances are that there's actually quite a lot happening before that task and after that task. You need to start challenging and understanding the process. But then what other processes are connected to that? If you automate that, what's going to happen to the process downstream? So moving from that opportunistic opportunity into strategic domain level has been really, really important for us. But the other thing that happened, interestingly, is this move from RPA to full stack. And any automation opportunity that we come across now, we don't look at it purely from the angle of RPA. We try to always look at it with everything you have in the basket. For some of you, this hasn't been the case because you did RPA for a few years, so now you're coming back to the same business units with new toys. For us, it's a little bit different because you still have a lot of greenfield, and it would be foolish to say, let me talk to you about RPA, and then in a couple of years' time, I'll come back and talk to you about agents. You can talk about the whole portfolio. That's the idea. Now, that gives us a challenge because when you have multiple technologies delivering the automation, you need to have good orchestration across the piece. That is definitely a need for us. And we come with our eyes open at any opportunity because now we now realize that any automation is going to involve some RPA, some cognitive capability of some sort, but also switching on the AI native abilities that some of the core platforms that we have. And you guys probably are not immune to that. You're probably getting Workday, ServiceNow, Salesforce coming at you to say, yeah, we can do it, we can flick this on, etc. Sometimes it's the right answer, sometimes it's not. But my view is that you should not close the door to say, oh, no, sorry, where are you, iPad shop? Your thing is really clever, but where are you, iPad shop? That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. So you're going to have a combination of different technologies, but you need to have a strong orchestration on top of it so that you can measure everything that Omar was showing just before. How do you orchestrate that? How do you measure SLAs in a process that has been automated with all of these things in place? Human in the loop, off-the-shelf capability, etc. So that's kind of the significant shift in our journey, and it's only going to accelerate in 2026. So just to share a few examples of the kind of things that we are coming across, some of the automations. These things probably won't mean much to you, but let me just quickly walk you through. SOSR is one of our biggest examples. It stands for selling outside of system range. It's a holiday automation. Our holiday business has had a challenge. Again, something that is probably common to all of us in this room. Lots of legacy applications, lots of legacy systems that are very difficult to change. It's not quick. So when they need to react at changes in the business and be able to increase and react to change in demand from customers, orchestrating those systems can be quite hard. So the team at BA Holidays deployed automation across the piece to mitigate those challenges and be able to increase sales. And that is why you see those big figures that I was quoting before in terms of the benefit, because on this one, you're hitting the top line. There's no additional cost coming to the business. You're just hitting directly new revenue. So that's a really important automation for us. Passenger claims, a little bit different. That has to do with EU regulation. When an airline when your flight is late, and hopefully you haven't experienced that today, but if you have, hopefully it wasn't one of our airlines. But that happens. And European regulation is very tough around that. You have to pay for accommodation, meals, whatever expense the customer incurred as a result of your delay. Okay? You have to pay for those things. Now, there is a process. There is a process for people to submit claims, get that expense claim processed and paid off. What we noticed is that people were, what's the right term? Very generous with some of these expenses. So we discovered that, thousands of pounds per day were being paid on tips, for example. All of a sudden, tips were quite significant. Tips are outside of the policy, outside of the regulation. So that shouldn't be reviewed. Alcoholic drinks is not part of the deal. You should not claim alcoholic drinks. And a number of other things that I'm not going to go into that people are trying to claim under this process that are not related to accommodation and meals. How do you spot that? How do you filter those when those receipts that you're processing can come from anywhere in the world? Some in Japanese, some in Cantonese. How do you figure out in the UK whether that's an alcoholic drink when you cannot even read what it says in there? So the this particular team were preparing to deploy a 50-strong team offshore to look at this and be able to mitigate this with people. An automation that we deployed uses Gen AI to figure that out. As you all know, for Gen AI, this is not such a huge challenge. You can pass on a receipt in whatever language and say, does that have an alcoholic drink in it? Yes or no. So you're able to make that decision a lot. So again, using a combination of RPA and cognitive abilities. News agent, that's been the headache of my life this year. I was sharing with some of you before. This is an agent that goes out and it has, I think, a list of, 50-something news sources. It scans all of those news sources for aviation news that happened, in the last 24 hours. It comes back with a huge amount of news. Just imagine all of those sources. So it then uses Gen AI to consolidate, deduplicate, highlight the most important things, so that it goes to our C-suite and it shares the summary of those news. Again, return of investment, is it huge? Well, how do you measure if people are able to make better decisions? But that's really interesting, and we were talking about that before. Really interesting, because how do you test those kinds of things? Testing those is a little bit easier than that. Testing that, we came across an example recently where somebody pinged me and said, your news agent, Luis, have you noticed what it says this morning? It says this morning that the CEO of IAG said this. He never said that. Why is it saying that? Testing that, reverse engineering that, is incredibly difficult. You need to figure out why the agent is making these decisions, etc. So that is a really interesting situation that we're looking at, because we want to deploy agents in 2026 that can do clever things. This is not such a clever thing, but if it gets it wrong, what if it was making a decision on whether to pay an invoice or not, or whether to raise a booking or not, right? That becomes a completely different game. Proactive aircraft maintenance, this is a complete, we call it classical AI, because it's nothing to do with Gen AI, nothing to do with agents. These are bespoke, proprietary machine learning models that we have a team developing, collecting information on engines across all the different airlines to trying to predict when one of those engines is going to fail. That's all it's trying to do. And the amount of money, you won't be surprised to hear, the amount of money that an airline business spends on maintenance is huge. So if we're able to improve that by 1%, let's not be ambitious, 1%, you're talking about a very, very significant benefit. So that's a program that is going on right now. So again, really interesting use cases, very different type of operations that we're trying to automate. But the common theme across all of those is the variety of technologies that we now have to use and orchestrate across the piece to make it work. Now, orchestration is, as I said, incredibly important for us, especially going into 2026. We don't know what we're going to be deploying in 2026. Every week brings something new. I was looking at the charts just this morning, and it looks like Gemini 3 is now the best. Again, is it going to be a new one from OpenAI before the end of the year? You never know. What are we going to be deploying next year? Who knows? So you need an independent orchestrator that is able to manage all of these pieces for us. Again, in line with business SLA, as Roman was explaining, really important. This thing needs to be done, and they need to be done on time. They need to be successful every time they run, or we start failing in our automation. But we made the decision as well that it needs to be independent from any of the technologies that we're going to use. Really, really important that you don't tie your orchestration to one of your RPA or automation vendors, because then you lose that independence, you lose that ability to orchestrate that and other platforms. That was a really important decision for us. So interesting challenges ahead. As I said, we're at the start of our journey, so there's a lot to do, which is exciting and frustrating at the same time. But that's kind of where we are. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please raise it now. Or yes, we have proper Q&A. Sorry. Yes,
no,
Eric.
It's fine.
Yes.
We're running a bit over time, but I want to. First,
I just want to applaud you now.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you.
And I like how you keep talking about orchestration, because we love orchestration. And I know, we've been talking about your journey because Luis and team, they did deep analysis on which tool to choose to go on their sort of multi-technology end-to-end processing journey. And I know this because he put us through the ringer. So we've been through all the tasks. So I was just wondering, we don't have to mention any names, but which other types of technologies did you compare an agentic management platform with?
Yes, so we looked at the RPA vendors that we have on the state. They offer orchestration. Didn't go for that because it was commercially is punishing, but number two, we wanted to keep that independence. We're very happy to have our RPA platform over here, our agentic platform over here, and then an independent orchestrator. So that independence was really, really important. As well as the fact that the RPA orchestrator doesn't look at SLA the way you guys think about it. So you're much more connected with the business requirements, not the technical requirements so much. So that was really important. We also look, Eric, at the BPMs, because they're also evolving into that space. Yep. The Camundas, the Appians, the Pegas, you name it. Again, we have them all in the shop. We felt that the way they integrated was very limited, so we didn't go for any of that. So yes, so in C2 we found that sort of sweet spot between we had you guys already in the state doing all the efficiency on our license utilization, but it was the natural evolution to say this thing is already independent and it's already talking to our platform. So that's the perfect solution for us. But also because, as I said, you look at SLA, business SLA, which is really important as well. Yeah.
Did you look at agent-to-agent orchestrators?
We did. One of our airlines deployed OpenAI across the piece. They've been working with them for about 6 months. And the initial mission for the OpenAI team was to start building agents. And one of the things they found is where they struggle is when they had a bunch of agents. How do you orchestrate them? And again, OpenAI didn't offer the right combination. In an airline, it's probably the same for many of your businesses. One of the big challenges you have is you need to make sure that the workflow, you can maintain a deterministic approach to your orchestration. When you go with one of the agent-to-agent platforms, is using Gen AI to make some of these decisions, and that to us is a little bit too much of a stretch right now. So it's okay to have some cognitive tasks in your process, but the orchestration needs to be cognitive. It needs to know what's going on, and you need to be able to trace it back and audit. So that was really important for us.
Yeah. I've heard from many of our customers, and I know many are going through this sort of process and thinking. Just sticking around, aren't you?
Pardon me?
You're sticking around.
Definitely, I will hear the rest of it. Yes.
So I know you haven't offered, but if you want to know more about the thinking around that for anyone, Luis is your man.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
You might get a slightly skewed view if you ask me.
Question. That sounded like you arrived at a decision quite easily.
Pardon me?
That sounded like you arrived at that decision quite easily. I assume it was a bit more challenging than that. Were there any hurdles to overcome to achieve there, and where were they from?
Yeah. Exactly. You're quite right. Everything is difficult in our group because you have different businesses, and each one of them will have a little bit of their own view on things. But you get the efficiencies and you get the benefits by acting as a group, both from a procurement power perspective as well as from a technology standards perspective. No, it wasn't easy, and we think this is the best we can do with what we know today. Again, if you talk to me middle of next year, who knows where the world is? Nobody really knows, especially the pace is going right now. But we think we're in a good place, especially with what we see in our backlog. We believe we're in a good place to deliver on that demand. Yep.
So being on the other end of it, it didn't seem like a decision or process they took lightly. There's lots of meetings, workshops, follow-ups, and comparisons. But it was very educational for us as well. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.